Lowell Sun here with Diane Chubb, a co-author of Hudson, Historically Speaking, a book by Diane and Lynn Ober, who is a Hudson resident,
yes,
correct? How's the reviews or the word of mouth for the book been since it came out, Diane?
The ones who actually take it off their shelf and read it are enjoying the stories in it, yes.
Now, why wouldn't anybody read it? I mean, it's got a beautiful cover. It's the Alverin Chapel right there. Anybody that's been to it knows how beautiful it is, but that's a nice rendering right there. It's a history book, so do people think it's too learned or too dry?
I have no idea. Most of my friends are still busy reading Goodnight Moon. So
Goodnight Moon or Twilight. Yeah?
Yeah, they don't have time to pick up a real book.
Well, let me say this. I mean, I've read about half of the book so far and enjoyed every bit of it, especially as we were talking about the history of the Alverin fire from start to finish, Benson's Wild Animal Farm, and you talk about the benefactor, the main benefactor in Hudson, Alfred Hills and Virginia Hills. So it's not just a history book. It's also a romance, true crime.
It's a celebration of Hudson. A celebration of all that makes Hudson special, including all the people that make Hudson special, all the people from the beginning of the history of Hudson who made contributions, had the vision to see that Hudson was going to grow, it was going to need space, it was going to need land, it was going to need libraries. Those visionaries really preserved Hudson so that it could be what it is today and accommodate the growth that they've experienced.
So what will you do with all the royalties from the book?
I might be able to go buy a cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts.
You know, that must speak to how difficult it is to make a dent in publishing, because, I mean, the books you just mentioned, they're okay, but I would almost venture to say that they didn't take half the work that you guys put into this. I mean, those are fictional works, and they caught on, but...
Lynn and I were never going to do this for the money. It was all about trying to capture and chronicle the history of Hudson. It was never about the money. It was contributing back to the community and capturing the essence of the community in something that would last.
Right, and I got to say the quality of the writing is excellent. You both are reporters, so we're in that fraternity anyway.
Former reporter.
Former reporter, but that helped a lot. I mean,
yeah, well, I'm also an attorney.
An attorney, so there's very few, probably no mistakes in there. If we look.
We hope not.
Yeah, you proofread your own material.
We did.
Yeah, it's not an amateur work, is what I'm trying to say. It's a really good read. One of the most startling things that I read was the whole, getting back to the Alverin fire in 1974, is not only did you chronicle, the blow-by-blow of what happened that day, but also the follow-up. 32 years later, you talked to the chief, and he had a good idea who set the fire. And now, why didn't that person... maybe I shouldn't give away one of the juiciest parts of the book.
The fire chief found out who was responsible for the fire and made a decision, maybe with the selectmen at the time. None of them are around now to say, to confirm or deny, but a decision was made not to prosecute that person for whatever reason. Right.
How about for you, in researching and writing the book, do you have a favorite part?
Benson's probably my
Benson's.
favorite part.
You went there.
I went there when I was a kid.
Right. And that put Hudson on the map? And
it really did. Hudson was just a sleepy farm community up until the turn of the century, and in 1924, John T. Benson bought a piece of land that was actually a tuberculosis health farm, and he took it and brought his animals. He worked for the Karl Hagenbeck brothers in Germany. They would go do these wild animal safaris in Africa, and they would bring the animals back to Hamburg, Germany, where they had their location, and they would start to train the animals. And then Benson would bring them to America to acclimate them to the North American climate so that they could be off to Ringling Brothers or any of the other circuses or any of the other zoos in the country. And he initially was bringing the animals into New Jersey, but the neighbors were not happy with the smells and the sights and the sounds coming from New Jersey, so when he had an opportunity to purchase the 250 plus acres in Hudson, he did. So initially it was never intended to be a zoo. It was simply his business of acclimating animals, but the Hudson residents were very curious as they saw all these animals getting off the train, being walked across the street to the farm, and curiosity got the better of them, and they decided, they asked him, can we come over? And he decided, he was a very enterprising man, and he decided, yeah, come on over, and he started charging admission, but Hudson residents never had to pay with Benson.
And would you say that this is a book that the Pelham residents or surrounding residents would enjoy for that reason?
Absolutely. I know very few people who did not go to Benson's at some point in their life, or have at least heard of Benson's, or their friends worked at Benson's. Everybody's got some sort of a Benson story, even if it's just something they heard secondhand. A lot of the people in Pelham, before Pelham had its own high school in 1974, attended Auburn High School. Mm-hmm. You know, initially we went to the publisher about a Pelham book, and they liked the proposal because I was going to do it with the former library director, Sue Hoadley, and their sales guy came in and said, you don't have enough retail in Pelham, we don't think we'll be able to sell enough books. What else can you do? And so Lynn and I had been talking about doing a project together, and we said, well, how about Hudson? Yeah. And so that's how I, a Pelham resident, got to do a book about Hudson.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you for talking, and I want to recommend this book. It's, I think it should be taught in the local schools.
Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Chubb, co-author of Hudson Historically Speaking, with Lynn Ober on the LowellSun.com.